A very good morning to you all aspirants. Welcome to the Civilspedia's Daily Current Affairs Analysis brought to you by Shankar IAS Academy, and today's date is 30th of July 2025. In this video, we are going to discuss about the following topics, and the topics taken for today's discussion are the Sundarbans, which was recently or yet again in news because of the recently concluded World Nature Conservation Day, which was concluded on July 28th, and the environmental protection rules, which was recently devised by the Environment Ministry under the Environmental Protection Act of 1986, and the multidimensional poverty reduction and the multidimensional poverty factors, and the recent initiatives taken by the India with respect to elevation of multidimensional poverty as well as the poverty elevation program, and the Stampede as a disaster. Before getting into the topic for today's discussion, there is a small correction need to be made in the previous dated video of 29th of July 2025 under the topic Gangaikonda Cholapuram. In the prelims practice question, the question was misinterpreted, and we sincerely apologize for the error that have made, and we assure you that this won't happen again. And moving to the that previous dated prelims practice question, the question is consider the following statement. The statement one, Chera, Chola, and Pandyas were refers to as the Movender in the Sangam literature, and the first statement was correct because these three people are to be considered or to be referred as the Movender in the Sangam literature. And the second statement, the Brigadishwara temple in the Tanjavur and the Gangaikonda Cholishwaram temple in Gangaikonda Cholapuram were built by Rajendra Chola I, which was also incorrect because which was an incorrect statement because it was not constructed by the Rajendra Chola I. It was Rajaraja I who built the Brigadishwara temple in Tanjavur and the Gangaikonda Cholishwaram temple in Gangaikonda Cholapuram. And the third statement, the territorial control under the Chola dynasty was limited to the Indian mainland, which is also an incorrect statement because the territorial control of Chola dynasty was not limited only to the Indian mainland. It was extended to areas like Sri Lanka, Malaysia, Indonesia, etc. So it was not only limited to the Indian mainland of India. So the third statement is also incorrect. And in this question, they have asked for the incorrect statement, and the incorrect statement in this question are 2 and 3. So the answer is option B, 2 and 3 only. With this, we move to the main discussion. This article will exclusively deal with the Sundarbans and the mangrove forest, and the Sundarbans was yet again in news because of the recently concluded World Nature Conservation Day on July 28th. And this will give you the overview about the Sundarbans and the mangrove forest. And with respect to the Sundarbans, it is the world's largest and richest mangrove forest in the world, and it will be home to around 78 mangrove species located in Ganges and Brahmaputra Delta. And this delta will be formed by the confluence of Ganga River, Brahmaputra River, as well as the Meghna River, and it spans across India and specifically to the West Bengal region, and it also be found to be in the Bangladeshi regions. And specifically, the name Sundarbans got came from the abundant species found in mangrove tea found in that area called Sundari, which gives the name of Sundarbans. And this forest is made up of various geographic features like mudflats, small islands, tidal water waves, which got the physical feature because of the deposition provided by the confluence of these three rivers, that is Ganga, Brahmaputra, as well as the Meghna. This got continuously shaped by the river sediments as well as the tidal intrusions. And this Sundarban got its importance because of it acts as the natural buffer. Not only this Sundarbans, overall the mangroves acts as a natural buffer between land and the ocean because it protects the inland area from the effects of cyclones as well as tidal surges. And the mangroves are useful for as a source of carbon sequestration, and it helps to mitigate the climate change. And one more peculiar feature of this mangrove forest called Sundarbans is that it also serves as a breeding ground for numerous marine species, which provides area for spawning, as it has the confluence and its presence in the brackish water region. It got the species to thrive, and it serves a wide variety of wildlife, including the endangered Royal Bengal tiger, as well as the Indian feature or the Indian species like Irrawaddy dolphins, as well as the Ganges River dolphins. And the saltwater crocodiles also has the prominence in that area to be found in this ecosystem. And what are the threats faced by this Sundarbans is that the first thing is the rising climate change and the rising sea level, stronger cyclone intrusions, and tidal intrusions and tidal surges also faces a major threat to this ecosystem. And the recent floodings caused by the Ganga and Brahmaputra and the confluence of both makes more threat to this biosphere reserve, as well as the forced it will also lead to the forced migration of some people as well as the species found in that area, which led to homelessness and loss of livelihood. And the second threat, basic threat, is that the lack of basic infrastructures, like the people who thrive in that area will lack electricity provisions, proper roads and proper healthcare will not be an adequate provided in an adequate manner, and the dependence on solar power is more and more prominent. And this solar power will also not be viable on the occasion of any weather calamities, and this region got isolated from the mainland. And the third major threat is the human wildlife conflict, as Royal Bengal tiger will also thrive on that area for its prey. Human will also go there for any resource of food, so they may get in direct conflict. It got more threat to both the species of human as well as the Royal Bengal tiger. And the loss of biodiversity also poses a great risk to the biosphere reserve called Sundarbans, because of the habitat destruction, which will eventually threaten the species like tigers, dolphins, as well as crocodiles and other species of that land. And the ecosystem imbalance affects both terrestrial as well as aquatic life. And with respect to this Sundarbans, it will be considered the most or the largest mangrove forest in the world, as and also a Ramsar site of wetland of international importance. And it is also, the Sundarbans is also the got the recognition from the UNESCO's World Heritage Site, and it will be considered the UNESCO's Biosphere Reserve. And the Sundarbans is not just only a mangrove forest, it is also served as a lifeline, as it got the buffer against the climate change, as we discussed in the previous slide. And it also a sanctuary to wildlife of very nature, and it also a sanctuary to endangered wildlife species like Royal Bengal tiger and Irrawaddy dolphins. And it also provide a resilient community, home to very resilient communities. Preserving its requires a collective effort from government, scientists, as well as NGOs, along with the support of the local population, which is also more important. And its future depends on what we have to do right now. And moving to the prelims practice question, consider the following statement regarding Sundarbans. It's a mangrove ecosystem formed only by the Ganges in India. We have to note that this is an extreme statement, so we have to put it in stay. And the second statement, the Royal Bengal tiger can be found in its natural habitat here, which is a correct statement, because the Royal Bengal tiger got its prominence, or it can be found naturally in the areas of Sundarban. So the second statement is correct. And the third statement, it is a freshwater ecosystem. It is not a freshwater ecosystem, as it has the confluence of both the freshwater from the Ganga and Brahmaputra Meghna rivers, and it got also the Bengal Bay of Bengal region. So it has the confluence of both, and it is a brackish water in nature, so it is not a freshwater ecosystem. So we can easily eliminate the third one from the option, and we have to quote the correct answer. So we can easily eliminate the third from the option. We can and we can cut size the option from 1 and 2, and 1 is an extreme statement, we can easily eliminate that too, and we can easily eliminate we can easily arrive at the answer of option B2 only is the correct answer. In this section of video, we are going to know about the recent Environmental Ministry's notification with respect to the identification or definition of chemically contaminated sites under the Environment Protection Management of Contaminated Sites Rules of 2025 under the Environmental Protection Act of 1986. In this section, we are going to know about the what are contaminated sites defined by the Central Pollution Control Board, and we need to note that Pollution Control Board is also very relevant to the UPSC prelims point of view, as it is a statutory body established under the Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act of 1974, and which also has the powers to which also has the powers and functions with respect to the Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act of 1981. And by definition of this Central Pollution Control Board, the contaminated sites has been defined with the historical dumping of hazardous and other waste, which leads to the contamination or creates a pollution to the soil, groundwater, surface water, etc., as it creates a polluting effect on the surface, and it also makes an impact on the health of the society as well as the health of the individual, as it also poses the environmental risk, has been defined as the contaminated site. And with respect to the current status of India as the contaminated sites, only 103 contaminated sites has been identified so far by the uh, Ministry of Environmental, Forest and Climate Change, as well as the CPCB, that is Central Pollution Control Board. And only the 7 sites among the 103 contaminated sites has undergone the remediation measures, or it has to be treated to make it environmentally viable as well as environmentally sustainable. And the frequent notification or the frequent legal lacuna that present in this taking action with respect to this contamination site is that the polluters of that offense has been frequently absconded, or they may not be in a current position, financial position, to provide the principal that they has to provide, so they may lack the financial capacity. And by with respect to the legal framework that was devised by the 2025 rules with respect to contaminated site is that the legal framework was as follows. First, they have to provide a report with the help of the district administration, that needs to file a half-yearly report on the contaminated site, and they have to identify the contaminated site. So first process involved in this is the reporting and identification, and the second process is the assessment they need to take on the contaminated site. In this they follow a preliminary assessment, and this assessment was the defining factor for the contaminated site, and it needs to be taken within the 90 days of the report. And after that they had to take a detailed survey with the preliminary assessment they take, and after the detailed assessment or the detailed survey of the contaminated site needs to be completed within the 90 days after the before 90 days after the preliminary assessment. And afterwards they have to identify for any excession of hazardous materials found to be in the environment. That is, they have listed 189 of hazardous chemicals under the hazard waste rules of 2016, and if the hazardous material or hazardous chemical exceeds in the above the par level, they need to be notified the public through public notification, and the access for the contaminated site has to be restricted. And further they have to make or the take the remediation plan. For that, the expert committee from a specified organization or the Central Pollution Control Board or any other government mechanism needs to be taken into account for the remediation plan, and the producer has to pay the principal if he is capable of paying the principal, or he has to be accountable. If the polluter is unknown, or they may not be in the current financial position, the government has to step in and fund up to clean up the environment, contaminated environment. And for that, this framework also contains a legal framework which also pin down the perpetrators or the polluters under the criminal liability under Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita Act of 2023 if there is any damage or damage to life or property was involved. And what are the factors, or what are some of the contaminants that got excluded from this recently defined rule, or radioactive waste, which was covered under the atomic energy laws. And for the main purpose that the radioactive waste was excluded, because radioactive materials are exclusively under the control of government, so they got excluded. If it is in the question, you can easily eliminate it from the option. So radioactive waste are excluded from this defined rules. And mining operations also excluded because it was covered by the MMDR Act of 1957. And marine oil pollution is also not covered under this act or rules. And municipal waste dumps was covered by the solid waste management rules of 2016. Moving to the prelims practice question, consider the following statement. First, groundwater, soil, marine oil and municipal soil waste. Which of the above are covered under Environment Protection Management of Contaminated Sites Rules of 2025? Is that we can easily came to the know about the answer, because as we know, contaminated sites will include groundwater, soil in this, but marine oil and municipal waste was dealt with separate act. So we can easily eliminate 3 and 4 from the option. By eliminating 3 and 4, we can easily able to get the answer of 1 and 2. B is the correct answer. With this, we move to the next topic. In this section of video, we are going to discuss about the multidimensional poverty and the India's initiative to reduce or alleviate poverty from the society. This article was taken from the news article of The Hindu, and in this article, it has opened by the author that the India has reduced or reduced the extreme poverty people of around 270 million people who are elevated or alleviated from the poverty's stronghold between 2011 to 2023. And yet there are 200 millions around people are still facing deprivations in various factors like health, education and living standards, who are all got in the hands of multidimensional of poverty. And this article has been stressed out for the need of integrated solutions like graduation approach, which was a wide recognized approach to alleviate or poverty elevation by worldwide recognition, and it also helps the poorest to achieve the sustainable livelihood. And with respect to this news, the news article highlights that we have discussed that 270 million people who are exited from the extreme poverty situation from 2011 to 23, and it has been considered to be the fastest decline among the marginalized caste and religious groups, which is a very positive situation that India has still facing, or India is still growing. And yet around 200 millions of people are still facing multiple deprivations, as we discussed earlier, like health, sanitation, etc. And with respect to the multidimensional poverty, it has been defined as the poverty which includes the lack of health, education, sanitation, housing, etc. As it got the dimensions of various factors like health, education, it got the name multidimensional poverty. And with respect to the India's multidimensional poverty, those who are deprived greater than 1:3, that is ratio of 1 by third of people of indicators, it need not to meet, or they are depriving of 12 indicators are considered to be poor. And the common deprivations found in Indian situations are lack of nutrition, lack of housing facility, or they may not be in proper sanitation facilities not available, and the cooking fuel not get provided to every household. And what is graduation approach? As I told earlier, it got the worldwide recognition to alleviate poverty, that it was developed by the BRAC, non-governmental organization with the backing of Bangladesh. It is an non-governmental organization fighting back to alleviate poverty from worldwide. As this graduation approach was adopted by this BRAC, and it was also recognized globally. And the components of this graduation approach is to gradually improve the households to in various dimensions, like asset transfer, training. Proper training has to be inducted, and providing incentives and cash support for elevation, or to provide certain employment opportunity and adequate health care, and proper mentorship has to be provided to every household, as well as the people or young generation, to elevate them from the poverty and show a gradual transition from poverty to make them sophisticated in the society in somewhat apart from the poverty. And with respect to India, there is a separate program called Samaveshi Ajivika, which was introduced in the year 2024 to make them more inclusive, and it was introduced to target rural households to elevate them from poverty, as they are not included in the Deen Dayal Antyodaya Yojana, as it targets who are all excluded from the Deen Dayal Antyodaya Yojana, as who are not included in the Deen Dayal Antyodaya Yojana has been targeted by this Samveshi Ajivika to get included, and the rural household who got excluded in that previous program got included in this Samveshi Ajivika, as and it also targets rural women for their empowerment, and it got introduced in the 11 states. And the some of the initiatives taken with respect to India's poverty alleviation or National Health Mission, which got the National Immunization Program, or the with respect to health care, and it got introduced in the year 2005, which provides free rural health care, and the implementation of primary health centers, and the Poshan Abhiyan, which got the nutritional backing by the support of government in the year 2018 to fight back against the child and maternal malnutrition. And the PM Awas Yojana, which was the primary yojana or the scheme to provide household to power, to make them more comfortable in the society, that everyone in the Indian society need to be provided a household under this program, who are all under the poverty got housing facility under this program, that is introduced in the year 2015. Affordable housing and sanitation is the primary focus, and the Samagraka Shiksha will focus on the education, which was introduced in the year 2018, that is universal school education to every child born. And the that is Deen Dayal Antyodaya Yojana. That's a new National Rural Livelihood Mission under 2011, women's livelihood through self-help groups. And what are the challenges involved in the elevation of poverty, as well as to cover the multidimensional that the poverty got in the vicious circle, is that the multidimensional deprivation still affects, as well as we discussed, the 200 plus million people. And what is the major challenge is that the regional disparity persists in the Indian society, with and with specifically around Bihar, UP and Jharkhand, and the welfare delivery gaps, that is there is a significant gap in the delivery of welfare schemes to the people, and to target the people who are in the poverty level, or to identification of people who are under poverty, is a major challenge. And the jobless growth, the people with only unemployment ratio also still shows a dark face, also remains a critical issue, and the climate and health shocks like COVID-19 also worsens the vulnerability to make them alleviate from the poverty. And some of the way forwards are listed below. Or shift from the fragmented to integrated approach will also make them evidence based strategies, like graduation approach will work out in the Indian situation, as well as to scale up the graduation based models like Samveshi Ajivika, as we discussed, will surely led to the alleviation of poverty in the Indian society in a greater manner, and use of multidimensional poverty index data to target interventions effectively, as we discussed that the delivery of welfare schemes and the devising of welfare schemes based on the multidimensional poverty data will also provides a greater scope for the alleviation of poverty. And to end poverty and ensure dignity for all is the vision of by India around 2047, that is 2047. And moving to the prelims mains practice question, despite the implementation of various programs for eradication of poverty by the government in India, poverty is still existing. Explained by giving reasons. This is the mains practice question, and students are encouraged to provide answers in a multi-dimensional manner, and make the answers in a comprehensive manner and post it in the comment section given below. We will surely review the answers and give the suggestions for you. And with this, we move to the next section. And this topic deals about the Stampede as a disaster incident which was happened frequently, and in the recent past it was happened in a subsequent manner. And this article was taken from the Hindu article, and this article specifically deals with the two tragic Stampede incidents happened in the subsequent dates of July 27 and July 28, and it was happened in the Haridwar Manasa Devi shrine, and which led to the 8 death incidents, and in the Avshaneshwar temple of Barbanki, which led to the death of two peoples in the Stampede incidents. And we get to know more about the Stampede as a disaster in the further section. And Stampede has been defined as the sudden uncontrollable crowd movement that result in the people being trampled or being crushed or suffocated, which led to the injuries or even fatality. And what are the major causes that led to the Stampede disaster? Or first thing is the overcrowding, which led to the which is being exceeded the physical capacity of a venue or a pathway, like narrow stairways, single exits cannot accommodate more people than the actual capacity that it holds. And the second cause for the Stampede incident is the lack of crowd control measures, that is absence of barrier like structures, and without proper scheduling, and the without monitoring of the flow of the traffic, which led to the disorderly movement, and which eventually led to the suffocation of people in a crumpled environment. And the third major cause of this Stampede is the panic or rumor, which triggers the people to behave in a mad rush manner. So because of fear, and like rumors like fire, bomb or electric hazard may trigger panic around the people who are confined in an environment, which causes the people to rush uncontrollably. And the other cause is that poor infrastructure maintenance, that is unsafe wiring or lack of escape routes, like a lack of emergency exits, and poorly maintained structures without proper ventilation or any other escape routes structures will worsen the situation during crowd surges. And the foremost cause is the misinformation or communication gaps, which led to the which we cannot able to arbiter the people who are confined in an environment, and we cannot address the people in a proper manner, which led to the delay in real-time alerts, prevents crowd coordination and calming measures. And with respect to the management of the Stampede as a disaster incident, there are laws and guidelines for managing this to avoid these Stampede like incidents. And the first guideline was proposed or provided by the Disaster Management Act of 2005, which empowers the central and state government disaster authorities to implement safety protocols for mass gatherings, including which includes the Stampede also. And the second was provided by the National Disaster Management Authority, which provides guideline for the crowd management under the crowd management guidelines of 2014, which mandates the advanced risk assessment and the intrusion of public into the place, and the crowd capacity planning and the real time management of large public events. They needs to mandate this, mandatorily follow the guidelines provided by this National Disaster Management Authority. And the third guidelines was provided by the model building bylaws provided by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, which prescribed the safety norms which needs to be included in the buildings, like emergency exits, and other staircase and emergency staircase, lift facilities, and proper fire extinguishing facilities, which all to be mandatorily provided in an structure or building, but with exemptions has to be provided, like religious structures, and which also creates an enforcement gap for maintaining or avoiding these kind of disasters. And with respect to the gaps to manage or to avoid these implementation of these guidelines or in the laws, or the National Disaster Management Authority guidelines provided by this, even though it mandates for the maintenance of certain protocols for the maintenance of crowd or stampede, this crowd management guidelines will not be an legally binding one, and it allowing the states or temple trust to treat them as only optional for certain guidelines. And the second gap in the law is that it exempts the religious structure from safety codes, which led to the disaster of Stampede in the recent events, and the safety standards due to charitable exemptions will also be a concern of getting into the Stampede. And the third gap was the non-mandatory or the non-compliance of various safety darshan mechanism, that is routine darshan even lack safety planning or certification, and it will also lead to the sudden intrusion of crowd into the temple or any public shrine. And the fourth law gap is the focus on compensation, not on reform. That is, the state will respond to this Stampede like incident only by paying an money or certain amount of compensation for the loss of life or the loss of property, which will be replaced by the reform measures that need to be taken while gathering in a public or in a public place, which needs to be reform, like issue of proper wiring, public addressing systems, and crowd monitoring or crowd management system. And the fifth gap is the poor enforcement of existing guidelines, that as we discussed, only the guidelines are, even though it mandates it, need not to be obligatory, so it needs to be enforced in a legal manner, so that only it was enforced to the public place gathering where the Stampede like instance may be avoided. And what are the measures need to be taken to avoid such incidents, or the making the safety guidelines as a legally binding one as provided by the National Disaster Management Guidelines? It needs to be enforced within the law to make them more accountable for making penalties as for non-compliance, and to remove the exemptions of religious sites for daily darshans as well as for the sudden darshan planning. They need to be mandatorily follow certain rules and protocols for avoiding such stampede incidents. And institutionalizing planning and drills, like providing regular mock drills, capacity audits, and trained professional training for crowd management will also empower people to manage or effectively avoid such situations. And the fourth thing we need to do is the use of technology in real-time monitoring, as well as uh, deployment of technologies like artificial intelligence, cameras, drones, lidars, and a digital alert system, monitor crowd management flowing, which will help to instantly respond to that such surges and also the threats behind it. And the final thing we have to make to ensure that to avoid such incidents, or the mandate of safety certification for regular darshans, as we discussed in the previous slide. The main practice question for this section is that in the recent times, the nation has been recording an increase in the stampede cases. Discuss the key legal gaps in implementation of crowd management law. With this, we conclude today's session. Hope you guys like the video, and please share your positive suggestions and comments in the comment section given below, and share the video to your friends, and please stay in touch with us by subscribing to our Shankar IAS Academy YouTube channel.